Hi, very good to see you.
You
So what can I make? I'm excited too. Without further ado, let's get into it. I know we pressed for time today. Um, Before we dive in, what's one fun fact about yourself that maybe not many of your followers know?
These questions always stump me because then they make me feel like I don't have anything fun about myself. Unfun facts. Yeah, okay. Well, a fun fact. Okay, I guess this is the most fun one I can think of. I always talk about how I always wanted to work in marketing, but if I'm being honest, before that, I used to really want to be a backup dancer, but specifically for Beyonce. Like that was the dream. Right? I danced for like 20 years, never got good enough to actually be her backup dancer though. So here we are. There's always moved. It's
Yep.
never too late.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe her standards will change with time. So and yeah. Uh, so you're an industry insider in a way. So many people listen to your insights, predictions. You always have the latest news, earliest predictions in your videos. Where are you getting all that from?
Yeah, do you know what? People ask me that question quite often, like, how do I stay up to date with everything that's happening? And to be honest, if you dedicate a certain amount of time per week, for me, it's about 2 to 3 hours per week, just reading different media sites like Social Media Today, The Verge, XYZ, it becomes super easy to actually stay on top of what's going on in the news cycle. And that's usually what I use when I'm predicting trends. You start to notice patterns within the industry. You start to notice, signs that key trends are developing. And when you really immerse yourself in it, it actually becomes a lot easier than you think. And I've been doing it for years. So with every year, it gets easier and easier.
Absolutely. Makes sense. I also read the word. Maybe I should get myself a channel like yours. But thanks for the insight. So to come to talking about 2025, we all sense big changes on the horizon. What are the key ones? What are the key changes do you think that will happen in the creator space next year?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many changes coming to both social media and to the creator economy. I think we've reached a more mature stage of the creator economy than obviously we previously had before. And that's being reflected by the sheer amount of money being invested into the creator economy. And that's continuing to be invested into the future. And that's going to have a big impact on a few things. I think from a creator's perspective, there are more opportunities to monetize than ever before. But I think with that comes decision fatigue. It comes shiny object syndrome, lack of focus. Often creators struggle to figure out which route is best for them because they're presented with so many different opportunities. So I think that's going to be a challenge for creators. On the flip side, there is so much money being invested into influencer marketing. So creators who want to see that as an income stream, they're going to have hopefully even more opportunities in the future. I also think that's going to change a bit as well. The way that brands are going to work with creators is going to change because they're becoming a lot more mature and therefore developing a lot more robust systems when it comes to who they choose to work with and how they work with us. So I think that's definitely going to develop as well. So that, along with the sheer amount of changes that are coming to the social media platforms that we use to build an audience, does mean that we are probably going to see a lot of change in the coming year. But fortunately, I think a lot of us are used to that. I don't think we've ever really had a year where things haven't changed a lot. So I think most creators are pretty flexible and ready to adapt. So I think everyone has to continue feeling that way for the year ahead.
We'll talk about the robust systems that brands might develop next year a bit later. But I just wanted to pop in a quick question. How are you personally preparing for the shifts? Are you implementing any changes already? Do you have a plan for 2025?
Yeah, I think the main kind of trend that I have been looking at for my own personal content has been the impact of AI on the creative industry. I don't want to dive into it. I always say this because so many people talk about AI and I don't want this to become an AI chat, but we'd be silly if we ignored the impact that it is having on the creator economy. And the way I see it for me specifically and my niche, it's kind of forced me to consider how I can continue to create valuable content that sets me apart from like a chatbot. So it's posed the question of how do I create content that is going to be more valuable than if someone went to chat GPT and asked them the question, right? So that's forced me to review how I show up and the content that I show up, the content that I share online. And with that means that my content will, take a slight tweak, a slight pivot just to make it even more valuable. It also means that I'm looking at new and different ways to create content that's going to value my audience outside of me sitting down and talking to the camera. So those are the main things that I've been considering. I'm working on a new content series, which is going to hopefully help people in a way that ChatGPT and AI can't. So yeah, that's the main trend that I've been kind of focusing on when it comes to my own content.
I feel like the part about thinking about how to make your content valuable way more than someone can get from ChatGPT or something, it's an important kind of like, it should be everyone's rule of thumb or like reality check daily. Um, quick reminder that today, if you guys comment 2025 in the comment section right here in the live stream, you'll get a unique deal on our gold subscription and also a link to a special guide from Jade. And we can come back to the conversation. How will the way brands view partnerships evolve in 2025? Can you go a bit into detail on that?
Yes, I'm sitting on a really squeaky chair, so if you hear that, please just ignore it. I'm like,
So on the share, I'm like, I hope I don't squeak.
yeah. Gosh. So brand partnerships are going to change. As I mentioned, people are spending a lot of money on influencers, but the way in which they're spending is changing a bit. So they're focusing more on smaller influencers, at least a lot of brands are, because smaller or micro or nano influencers are seen as more valuable for a lot of brands at the moment because they tend to have more engaged communities. So that's something to be aware of. And in addition to this, because of how much the influencer space has changed and grown over a few years, brands have become a lot more trusting with influencer marketing as a marketing channel. And with that comes greater investment, greater and more robust analytics around it, and more opportunities for us as well. So now it's like brands are going to see influencer marketing as a core part of their marketing plan rather than seeing it as this thing that they throw on at the end if they've got a little bit of money left, you know? And that's previously how they saw it. So that's really great. It does mean more opportunities for us. But to my point around the kind of analytics area of it, what it does also mean is that brands are investing in systems which make it easier for them to really analyze the creators they're potentially going to work with and also whether or not these campaigns are working. So you think about it, if they're going to be spending more money on influencers and it's going to become a more important part of their marketing campaign, they also have to be a lot more advanced with the way in which they're running it. So that side is kind of playing catch up now. And I've spoken to a lot of brands and I've seen firsthand the systems and the tools that they built like from scratch to manage their influencer marketing, and they are incredible. Like they're really taking it up to the next level. And what that means for us is that we can't pull the wool over any brand's eyes. Not that we should be trying to anyway, but if you are someone who in the past has like purchased engagement or purchased followers and kind of hoped that you might be okay, we're really reaching a point of the industry where it's mature enough that it's not going to work. People are going to see it, you know?
Absolutely.
So you've got to be really focusing on genuine engagement and a genuine community. Otherwise, you will start to lose out on partnership opportunities.
Do you think brands also change the way they like preview and okay the content, more like quality control, more hands-on approach for that?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I'm kind of seeing brands go in two different ways. Like some of the ones I speak to from like a consultancy perspective are going down the route where they're like, okay, we need to be more specific with the brief and we need to be really, really clear on what we want because we're investing so much money now. And on the other side, other brands, usually bigger brands, are kind of going the other way. And they're thinking, okay, we want to get the most out of this brand partnership, but we know that the way that we do that is by giving the creator more freedom. So how do we give creators more freedom while still providing some form of structure? So it does depend on the brand. I am kind of seeing brands do one of two different routes.
Interesting. And you mentioned tools that they are developing or have been developing to analyze the success of campaigns and the efficiency of creators' work. Could you go a bit more in detail about that if you can?
Yeah, I mean, these are tools that they've literally built in-house. So they're not necessarily tools that anyone can kind of research and get hold of themselves. But essentially they're tools which help them scour the market for creators. So like when they say, okay, I want to find a creator to work with, it will help them figure out which creators have truly good engaged audience, what their average view is, their true engagement rate, all that stuff. it will also show them like data on whether that creator has mentioned that brand before. And I think that's something that I'm seeing more of a trend of, that brands, because there are so many creators out there, they're looking for creators who actually have a genuine affinity to their brand and their product. And one of the ways that they're looking for those creators is by seeing if they've mentioned them organically before. And their tools actually allow them to see that and assess that. So just think of the most in-depth kind of search engine for creators, and that's basically what they're building.
That does sound very interesting, but a bit scary, but also empowering in a way. And we can kind of say then that follower count becomes less dominant as a decision making tool. With what key metrics should creators then focus on in 2025 to stay attractive?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think the answer is going to depend on the type of creator that we're talking about here. If you are a creator who wants to work with brands as part of your key like monetization strategy, then it's important that you consider what your value is going to be to a brand. There are some creators out there who can say, you know what, my value to a brand is that I can help a brand get awareness. I can help a brand reach a lot of people. And if that's going to be your value, then you've got to be focusing on your views and your reach, because that is what you're going to offer the brand. There are other creators, though, who might have a smaller audience, but they're heavily engaged and very specific and very targeted. So for them, their key metric is going to be their engagement rate, how many interactions they get, the quality of their comments, the quality of their DMs. Like that's what they're going to focus on. So I always say to creators, like, don't try and be all of them. Very few creators are actually good at doing all of those things. Like it almost doesn't exist. So try and figure out what your value is, and then figure out your metric from that, because that's going to put you like best position to actually see success.
Are you a numbers girly or are you a quality baddie? Some people are like,
Question. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's basically it, isn't it? That's what people need to be afraid. I'm personally a bit of a numbers gal, but yeah.
that's that. I mean, we can't be everything. Said. Yeah. Do you think with all these changes, the very scope of partnerships between brands and creators will change? The amount of content that is ordered or purchased?
I think what's going to change the most is going to be what brands do with the content, if I'm being honest. I think if they're investing so much money in these creative relationships, they're going to want to have the right to use this content beyond organic social media. And I'm seeing that personally with the deals that I've got. I'm seeing so many more brands want usage rights. I'm talking at probably 70% of my brand partnerships now want usage rights, whereas a couple of years back, that would maybe be 10%. It would be rare if a brand wanted usage rights. For anyone's listening who doesn't know what I mean, usage rights is essentially when a brand wants to pay to use the content that you've created on their own channel. So they might want to use your content on a TV ad or on a paid social post or in a brochure, right? So you have the right to either give them that access and give them those rights or not. And I'm just seeing more and more brands want the right to use creator content across multiple formats. And it makes sense. If you're investing so much more money into it now, you want to make sure that you can really get the most out of it. And more often than not, brands get the best results when they mix both organic content and paid. So it does make sense.
It does make sense, absolutely. Speaking from our experience here. Um, you argue that brand partnerships are still the main source of income for a lot of creators, but they're also kind of risky to rely solely on. Can you share two, three alternative monetization strategies for those who've only looked up to brands so far?
Yeah, yeah. And the reason why I say that is because I actually read a report that said, I think it was like over 80% of the average creator's income comes from brand partnerships. The reason why I say that it's risky is because brand partnerships as an income stream can be it can fluctuate a lot. It fluctuates in terms of how many deals you get, and it's completely based on the economy versus based on you. But also like when you get paid is like ridiculous as well. Um, so sorry, I just saw a comment from someone saying, "Where are you?" I'm not actually at home. I was thinking, do I need to caveat this? Because my audience would be like, that is not her aesthetic. I'm not at home at the moment, if anyone from my audience. You could probably tell. So yeah, the other income streams that I recommend are exploring some form of paid community. Sometimes that's a membership, sometimes that's like an Instagram subscription or a YouTube membership. You do need to have either a very clear value or a very engaged audience in order to see some return from that. Some creators might want to focus on affiliates. Those are especially good for creators who get a lot of reach with their content. Great way to earn like passive as I guess you can get income. Other creators might want to go down the product or service route. If you are an educational creator, for example, that does, work really, really well for your types of content. So to offer your expertise as a consultation, as a coaching program, etc. So yeah, there's a bunch of different routes that you can go down. I do recommend that creators who want to be in this world for a while, so ones who are looking towards longevity, I do recommend that you diversify your income because that is going to help you with longevity. If you don't, if you're doing this as a side gig, you still work full time, this is just something fun that you do, then by all means, just do the odd brand partnership when it feels right to you and just kind of leave it at that. There's no need to build an entire business behind it if that's not what works for you at that time. But if you are trying to build a business, then you do need to diversify.
Couldn't have said better myself. A small reminder that everyone text in 2025 in the comment section of this conversation will get a unique deal from us at Prequel and also a small guide directly from Jade on which contains more tips and interesting stuff. I wanted to move to talking about platforms for a second. Which platforms do you think will be the most important for creators to focus on in 2024?
Think it's gonna
2025.
yeah. It's going to depend on the objective of the creator. I think if a creator is trying to get a lot of reach, and the obvious caveat that if TikTok doesn't get banned in the US, because that will impact all markets, not just the US, if that doesn't happen, then and creators are trying to get a lot of reach, TikTok is going to be the platform that still is the most likely to give you that. But reach isn't everything, right? You've got to also think about the quality of that reach, and you've got to think about your end goal here. Is that actually going to help you reach your end goal or not? That's another question. YouTube is also going to be one of the biggest platforms, as it has been for a while, especially for creators who prefer long form content and who want to create like higher production content. YouTube, it was recently announced that they overtook Netflix in terms of the amount of time people are spending watching their content on TV. They are becoming one of the lead streamers when it comes to connected TV, and they're making a lot of changes to their platform to facilitate this. So they're changing their TV app. They're making it easier for creators to upload content and put it into episodes. So if you are someone who wants to go down that route, like now's the time. YouTube is very much pushing that type of content. So YouTube will be the best platform for those types of creators. But then at the same time, if you're someone who prefers writing, I personally can't relate. I am a terrible writer. I only like to speak. But if you're someone who prefers writing, then Substack is going to be an amazing platform for you because they're having a huge glow up and they're getting a lot of attention right now. So yeah, it does really depend on your objectives, but those are the ones that are really on my radar. I know Snapchat is also having a glow up at the moment. I always feel like I'm a bit too old to Snapchat, but I must acknowledge it.
Not, you notably didn't mention Instagram. Do you think its days are coming to a close? Starting to come to a close?
I don't. I think it's too big of an app. I think they are making so many changes that I think the interest will remain. I think the reason why it doesn't come up in my mind as one of the front runners is because they haven't quite nailed their algorithm. I think the last few years they've been trying to for a while. They're in a really difficult position because at the end of the day, they built the platform based on connecting with your friends and family. And we're now there are a lot of creators who want to reach people outside of that audience. So how do they reverse engineer their platform to make sure that we're all seeing content from our friends and family, but also creators are able to grow and reach an audience? The two things are opposite and they're not merging, so they're struggling. I think until they nail that and creators can feel like if they put a lot of time and effort into their platform, they have a chance of getting a reward. And I don't think creators have felt that way for a while on Instagram, whereas they do feel that way on other platforms. Until that changes, I don't think they'll be in like my top platforms to look out for. That could change though. Who knows?
Who knows? You also suggested in one of your recent videos that some new platform might gain traction in the new year. Is this based on industry insights? Is it more of a vibe assessment? What might such a platform look like?
Yeah.
Share details.
It's more of a vibe check, I'm not gonna lie. It's more of a vibe check because when you look at like the patterns of platforms and how they performed over the last, let's say, 10 years on social media. I just think we're kind of due for a new platform to enter the space and disrupt it a bit. Might be Blue Sky. They're already kind of doing it. But that it might be that is my prediction and it's already kind of happening already. We're just in a place where a lot of the biggest channels are reaching that level of maturity. So when you look at like the product lifestyle pool, it goes like this. A lot of them are here. I mean, Instagram are like here. They're on the decline, right? But a lot of them are here, and that usually means that there's space for someone else to have their moment, and that's just what I think is going to happen. Yeah.
Okay. And to weave into the conversation about platforms, but also about community a bit, and the quality of the community some creators are fostering. Can we just take a zoom back and talk about what does a community mean at all for a creator? Why is having a community is talked about so much more and more these days?
Yeah. So from a creator's perspective, community can mean different things. But in a nutshell, for most creators, it just means that there's a group of people who you all have a shared interest around and you kind of communicate and bond over that interest. Communities can live in different places. Sometimes they live purely on your social media channel and they therefore show up on your comments. Other times they live in a membership or in some kind of closed community. They might live on a broadcast channel, for example. They might live in your newsletter. Sometimes they're vocal and you hear from them often, sometimes they're not. It's just this concept of having a group of people who are all connected over a shared interest with. And to answer your second question, this is going to become more and more important. It's always been an important element of your social channel, but social channels are kind of moving from this broadcast model where it's like, okay, you use social media to broadcast your message to as many people as you possibly can. That was like previously what it was, just want to get my word out there. And it's moving to this place where it's like, okay, it's not just about you shouting your message. It's actually also about hearing from others in your community and having conversations about it. And platforms have been changing and tweaking to adopt to this new kind of user habit all year. Yeah. Instagram came out and said, most of their engagement now happens through private sharing. It happens in their DMs. That's why they've made so many changes to their DMs. That's why they introduced notes, broadcast channels, because they can see that's where the user behavior is going and they're trying to adapt their platform to facilitate that. YouTube announced a new communities hub, which basically allows your audience to share content on your channel, not just you. So it's under your community tab. It's like a discussion board. And that again supports this idea that we're moving to this space where it's not just you sharing a message, it's also you hearing from your audience and your community. So yeah, that's why I think things are just going to go more and more down that route.
Um, Speaking about YouTube Community Hub, can you give us a bit more details, maybe to people that haven't heard about it that much? What specifically you can do there? Specifically, a creator can do there
Yeah.
in that tool.
So I like to say it's kind of like a Facebook feed, but I know not everyone will get that depending on how old you are. But essentially, it's where your YouTube tab kind of lives right now, your community tab. If you picture that right now, which by the way is available for everyone to use now, it never used to be. You used to have a certain amount of subscribers. Now it's open to everyone. Picture that, but instead of just you sharing photos and just you uploading polls, your audience can actually submit photos and submit polls and say things. So it becomes a discussion board, but you should hopefully all be discussing and bonding over the shared interests that would be reflected on your channel. So mine, for example, what it should look like is people showing screenshots from their content, asking questions about social media, sharing wins, right? That's what that should look like. And that's what they're aiming towards. I think I'm really interested to see how it works because some YouTubers have such huge audiences that I'm just really interested to see how that's going to be facilitated. In my mind, when I think of some huge creators, I don't understand how they're going to do the influx of content onto that discussion board. So yeah, we don't know the complete details. So let's just kind of watch the space and see how it ends up panning out.
Are people going to be hiring community managers or assistants, more people to coordinate all this
Oh,
stuff?
yeah, you're so right. That's probably going to be a whole new role that's going to open up. I mean, community managers are already a thing, but very much for like paid communities. So yeah, it's probably going to become a bigger thing just for your normal organic channels too.
Okay, and as we're coming to a bit of our half an hour deadline, a bit of a change of gears. To talk a bit about you, you started off working on your content before and after your day job. So we know for a lot of creators that's relatable thing to try to balance their job and starting out in content creation. Can you give some inspirational advice for those people who are in that space right now?
Yes, for sure. If you are in a situation where you are working full time and you're building your content creation career on the side, it's probably going to feel quite overwhelming at the moment. Remember that you are quite literally doing two jobs. It's okay to feel tired. It's okay to take a break. And also know that it doesn't last forever. I remember really feeling, unfortunately, reached a stage of burnout when I was in that phase. And the main thing that kind of put me through was knowing that this wasn't going to be the situation forever. I was aiming towards a position where I'd eventually be able to leave my job. And fortunately, that did happen. So whilst it does feel super difficult at the moment, it won't feel like that forever, and it will be super worth it in the end as well. And I guess the other thing I would say is like the main reason why people aren't able to reach that goal of either working full time or earning an income through content creation is one, because they quit, and two, because they're not willing to change and adapt and improve their content over time. If you really think about it, any goal that you have, if you are willing to stick to it and you're willing to consistently learn how to improve it, you should be able to reach it eventually. So that's the main thing that I'd say to you. You need those two things. You need that commitment to that goal and also the commitment to improving, and then you'll be fine.
Great, great. Thank you so much. We're sure this will land on very, very, how to say, it will reach the audience it needs to in our specific part of the internet. And before we close, do you have any quick bite-sized advice on what industry practices that creators are doing now should be left behind in 2024 before
Yeah.
the new year?
Yeah, I think more like now more than ever before, it's super important that whatever content you create, whatever niche you're in, even if you're not in a niche, whatever it might be, that you really focus on dialing up who you are and your personality and your own kind of vibe. As alluded to at the start of this, obviously with AI comes great opportunity. What it also does is it has the potential to water down a lot of people's content and make it sound very stale and very samey. Anyone can go to a chatbot and enter the prompt, write me a video script about XYZ and get an entire video script. That is not going to cut it in the future simply because everyone can do that. So really focus on what you can bring. If you're going to be an educational creator, then make sure you're providing what your opinions are and what your strategies are. If you're going to be someone who does entertaining content or relatable content, make sure you're showing your personality and not just what you think others want to see from you. I know it's so corny every time I say it. It's like, oh, just be you. It's like an after school special, but it's true. You have to dial up what is naturally you and your vibe. Do not be worried that some people won't get it, because at the end of the day, if they're not going to get it, then they're not your audience. Okay. There will be people who get it. So you've got to really focus on that. That would be my number one tip.
Amazing. You have it here first, guys. Don't stick to ChatGPT. Let your own personality shine through. And at this moment, thank you so much, Jade. This has been an amazing chat. We hope to have you in the future again, and hope you get an amazing experience of running your channel in 2025.
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Let's bid farewell. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Okay.